And now we're going to do evaluate. Okay, so this is part 3. So this is evaluate. So now we're not trying to shrink. We're trying to get an answer. Okay. So these ones look a little bit different. If secant theta equals this, so they have to give us some numbers this time. Okay. Notice the other ones didn't have any numbers. Then find cosine theta. So because of the connection between the identities, if they give us one number, we can like work around to get the other number. Okay. So here's how these work. Is there an identity that connects secant and cosine together? You guys see it, right? Yeah. Okay, so it's this one. I mean, secant theta, or I want cosine theta, that's what I want. So I'm going to do cosine equals 1 over secant. Because I want cosine. That's the answer that I want. So that's why I put cosine over here. Okay. Now, notice I do know what secant is. So I'm going to put this right there because I know that that's that. Secant theta is that number. Okay. So cosine theta equals 1 over, I'm not going to write secant theta this time, I'm going to write what secant theta is. Secant theta is equal to negative square root of 30 over 3. That makes sense, the difference here, you're actually substituting the number that it equals. Okay? Okay guys, here's this part, I need you to understand this. Cosine, this is the answer. That is the answer, okay? But the rest of this is going to be cleanup. We just got to make this answer look nicer, okay? It's ugly like that, so we got to clean it up, okay? And so we need the hamburger here, so I'm going to put this over 1. Okay, that way I can do the hamburger. Simplify this into, instead of having 2 fractions, I can just have 1 fraction. So I do the top and the bottom again. So 3 over, and then these 2, negative square root of 30. Okay, is everybody okay up to this point? I'm just cleaning up answer, okay? I'm just making the answer look nicer. Okay, I don't know if you remember this, but we can't have square roots on the bottom, on the denominator. Okay. With answers, you don't do that. You can leave them like that, but it's kind of like not capitalizing the first letter in a sentence. It's not proper. Okay. So it's really easy to fix these. All you need to do is you just multiply by the same square root. And now fractions, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Okay. Now, why do we do that? Because when you're multiplying by itself, it's like you're squaring. And what does the square do to the square root? Cancel. So now you don't have a square root, you just have the 30. So that's how you fix a square root on the bottom, which is called rationalizing the denominator. Like that's the official way. Anyway, so this is 3 square root of 30. Remember, we had our answer way up here. This is all just clean up. Okay. And 3 and 30 are both divisible by 3, right? So final answer is square root of 30 over negative 10. Because 3 divided by 3 is 1, 30 divided by 3 is 10. Okay. I do understand that's a lot of work, like to clean it up. It's weird, but it gets easier once you do it a couple of times. Okay. By the way, in parentheses, real quick, this used to confuse me as a student. Let me show you something. You know, when you have a negative on the bottom and the top, that used to throw me off. Okay, out of these four, only one of them is not true to the other ones. Can you spot who doesn't belong?
The third one?
Not the third one.
The second one, the fourth one.
Okay, let me show you. Let me show you how. Okay, and you know this. Watch. What's a positive divided by a negative? Okay, that's a negative fraction. Okay, what's a negative divided by a positive? Negative fraction. That one's a negative fraction because it's off to the side. But what's a negative divided by a negative? Okay. This one's the one that doesn't belong. Okay, so when you have, what I'm trying to teach you is when you have a negative on the bottom, you can float it to the top if you want. If it's at the top, you can float it back to the bottom if you want, or you can put it off to the side. They're the same thing. The one thing you can't do is just don't put them on the top and the bottom because that's different. Does that make sense? Okay, last one. Number 2. If tangent x equals square root of 2 over 4 and cosine x okay. So if they give you two pieces of information, find sine x. Can we find sine x? So the difference here is instead of giving you one piece of information, they give us both. But do you guys see an identity that has these three things? Tangent, sine, and cosine. Okay, it's right here. So that's the one we use because that's the one that has all three. So we're going to use this one. Tangent x equals sine x over cosine x. Why that one? Because look, we know tangent. We know cosine. We don't know sine. So for this equation, we only don't know one thing, so that means it's solvable. Okay. So before I plug in numbers in here, I need sine x. So let's get sine x isolated. So let's move the cosine x. How do I move cosine x away from sine x? Multiply. So multiply both sides. Now sine x is by itself. Okay. So here we go. Sine x equals that. So now I'm going to plug in these numbers. Okay. Cosine x is that number. Tangent is this number. So I'm going to put those numbers right there where they go. So here we go. Cosine x is negative 2 square root of 2 over 3. Tangent x is square root of 2 over 4. And that gives me sine x. Let me scoot up so you guys can see. Again, that is my answer. Now I just clean it up. That's all I have to do is clean up. So let's clean up. For example, this 2 and this 4, they reduce because they both divide by 2. Okay. What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? What's the square root times itself? What happens to the square roots when they cancel? So they just leave what's inside. When you multiply these, so they just leave that 2 there. Okay, and now I still have that negative in the front. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 3 times 2 is 6. Now you could do this stuff with your calculator, but I'm just showing you without. Right? And then can 2 and 6 divide by the same number? Yeah. There it is. Okay. Now, remember this is the notes. You still have all tomorrow to practice these, okay? Real quick, let me show you this because I saw a little bit of confusion. What's the answer to that? 52. Okay, the square roots just cancel. Everyone should be comfortable doing that. Okay. Okay, guys, we'll stop here. We're a little early.